This episode of Inspire AI podcast is sponsored by Exponent 21. I keep hearing the same thing from business leaders lately. We're doing the work, but leads are harder to explain. Traffic is down, attribution feels fuzzy, and the old answers don't really fit anymore. What's changed is how people search. Instead of clicking links, people are asking questions, and AI is answering them. Tools like ChatGPT, Google's AI-powered results, and Perplexity are shaping which brands get mentioned, referenced, and remembered. Exponent 21 specializes in AI SEO. They help businesses understand how to show up consistently inside those AI-generated answers across questions about their industry, their services, and their brand. What stands out to me is that when people ask AI tools, who's leading in this space? Exponent 21 and its leaders are often referenced near the top. That comes from doing the work and shaping how this new search environment actually functions. To understand what this shift means for your business, visit exponent21.com. Welcome back to Inspire AI, the podcast where we help leaders and builders be more intentional as intelligence becomes prolific. And today, we're talking about a very 2026 idea, LLM-as-a-Judge, when AI evaluates AI. Picture this. You ask an AI to draft a customer email, summarize a board deck, or generate a code snippet. It responds instantly. But instead of shipping that output straight into the world, you run it through a second AI, whose only job is to evaluate. Is this accurate? Is it grounded? Does it match our standards? That's the heart of LLM-as-a-Judge. One model generates, another model reviews. When we say AI judging AI, we don't mean some mystical objective truth machine. We mean a practical workflow. Model A produces an output, some response, whatever it is, a piece of code. Model B receives the original prompt, the output, and a grading instruction, maybe a rubric, or a set of criteria, or a comparison format. Model B returns a verdict, a score, pass-fail, maybe a label like grounded or ungrounded, or written feedback. There are three common formats. Single answer grading, which says, here's the response, grade it on accuracy, completeness, and tone. Then there's pairwise comparison. Here are two answers. Pick which is better and tell me why. And then there's reference-guided evaluation, which goes like, here's the response, and here's the trusted source. Does it match? So the key mental model is it's often easier to critique than to create. A model may struggle to produce perfection on the first attempt, but can still spot missing steps, weak logic, or tone problems when it's put into reviewer mode. This distinction matters for everyone because it turns evaluation from a bottleneck into a scalable system. Let's talk about where this works surprisingly well, especially in the real organizational workflows. Summaries, memos, and executive clarity. Traditional metrics can't tell if a summary missed the one sentence that changes the meaning, but an LLM judge can. A good judge can check, did we capture the key points? Did we add anything that wasn't in the source? Is the tone appropriate for the audience? This is huge for AI practitioners because summarization is everywhere. Meeting notes, weekly updates. If an evaluator can catch drift early, it reduces the quiet error which is risk that piles up over time. It can do code reviews with guardrails. The strongest pattern here is hybrid, deterministic checks, whereas tests, linters can check for correctness. LLM-judge for readability, structure, edge cases, and code smells. Think of the judge as your never tired reviewer, not your only reviewer, but the one who catches a lot of the obvious stuff quickly, consistently, and at scale. How about the customer support and conversational quality? This is an underrated use case. It should judge an answer is grounded in the provided policy article, aligned with the brand tone, and actually answers the question. A support team doesn't just need to know the model responded. They need to know the response is safe, correct, and on brand. LLM-judge can often rank answers reliably, sometimes better than they can assign precise numeric grades. Pairwise comparisons and ranking are where these systems tend to feel most stable. But there are still places where LLM judges stumble. This is the part that matters if you're leading people, shipping products, or managing risk. One pitfall is confident nonsense. A judge can sound like a tenured professor and still be wrong. It may say, this answer is more reliable because it cites sources, even if the sources are fabricated. So your rule is confidence is not evidence. Pitfall 2, biases you don't ask for. LLM judges can show consistent evaluation quirks. Verbosity bias, where longer sounds better. Position bias, where first answer wins too often. And style bias, where polished tone beats correct content. If you don't explicitly counteract these in the prompt and process, you can accidentally build a culture where teams optimize for winning the judge instead of serving customers. Pitfall 3, inconsistent scoring. We set absolute scores like 7 out of 10. These are harder than relative scores, where A is better than B. And because models are probabilistic, you can get slight shifts, one run to the next. That's not a deal breaker, but it means you design your system like a leader, not like someone expecting a lab instrument. And the final pitfall is outsourcing values. Here's the most important failure mode. If you delegate evaluation without finding quality, the model will import its own default values from training. Delegating judgment without defining values is abdication, and because evaluation isn't neutral. Evaluation is governance. Evaluation is culture in executable form. So how do you use LLM as a judge in a grounded way? Getting practical here, if you want to try this, let's say next Monday, here's the pattern that works. Rubric-based evaluation. Your values made explicit. You create 3 to 6 criteria and define what good means. Example rubric categories could be accuracy or groundedness, completeness, clarity, tone, safety, policy compliance, actionability. And you define scoring anchors like 5 equals excellent, 3 is acceptable, and 1 risky or unusable. This forces the leadership move. What do we actually value? If you're going to do a pairwise comparison, this can offer fewer calibration headaches, but you have to decide between the 2 prompts, 2 model versions, or 2 drafts of an email. You can ask the judge to choose and justify, then randomize the order to reduce position bias. This is also great for A/B testing internal workflows without burning human time. And then next, there's jury mode for reliability. Instead of 1 judgment, run the judge 3 times with slight rephrases, or use multiple models. At that point, you can take the majority vote or an average. This reduces randomness and smooths edge cases. Here's another pattern: grounding checks using sources. If you have a reference doc, policy, or knowledge base excerpt, feed that to the judge. Require it to cite which parts support the answer. Penalize anything not supported by the source. This is how you push the judge from vibing to verification. And finally, you can use separate judges for separate dimensions. One judge can fact check, another judge can tone check, and another judge can check your policy for safety and compliance requirements. This gives the judges smaller, clearer tasks, ultimately leading to better evaluations. So what does this change for professionals? If you're a practitioner, here's the shift. This will move you from we use AI sometimes to we operate AI inside a quality system. Because once you evaluate at scale, you can monitor drift, compare model upgrades, and run experiments without betting the business. And you can standardize quality across teams. It's about human adaptation at scale, translated into practical mental models and workflows leaders can actually use. Speaking of leaders, here's the lens you can try on. Evaluation is a values decision. What does that mean? It means if your AI writes customer emails, what do you reward? Do you reward speed? Do you reward empathy, brevity, legal caution, clarity? You can't optimize all of it equally. So when you build an LLM-judge, you're not just building a tool, you're encoding trade-offs. That's why evaluation design is strategic. A strong leader's approach looks like this. Define quality. What are the explicit values and the trade-offs? Translate into a rubric. What do you want to actually measure? Test against human judgment. Qualify your grounded truth. Deploy with monitoring. Detect issues as you go. And audit and evolve. That's human in the loop, human on the loop that we talked about before. A weak approach is just letting the model decide what's good, or ship the score, or even worse, treat it as objective. That's how organizations end up with brittle systems and surprised failures. All right, so here's some simple experiments to try next week. You can run these immediately. 1, the self-critique loop. After you get an AI output, paste it back in and ask, evaluate this response on, choose any of these: accuracy, completeness, clarity, tone, whatever. List any risks, then suggest improvements. Then regenerate using the feedback. Pairwise judge. If you have 2 drafts, email A and email B, ask, which is better for senior executive audience and why? Prefer clarity over verbosity. And finally, the groundedness check. Provide the source paragraph, maybe from a policy doc or a fact excerpt, and ask, does this answer contain any claims not supported by the source? If yes, list them. These are small, but they train the muscle. Mastery of judgment in an AI world. So here's your takeaway. LLM-as-a-Judge isn't about replacing human judgment. It's about scaling it. It's a second set of eyes that never gets tired, as long as you teach it what you value. Because the moment you just delegate evaluation without defining quality, you lose your neutrality. You get defaults. And in a world where intelligence is becoming ambient, the winners won't just be the teams who generate the most content. They'll be the teams who can measure, steer, and govern that content with clarity. That's it. Until next time, stay curious, keep innovating, and keep building the kind of judgment, human and machine, that makes progress safer, calmer, and more intentional.